You are Locked On Bulls Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Chicago on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Bulls Postcast here on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. The Bulls win 111-97 over the Utah Jazz, moving to 29-39 on the season. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first order. So on today's show, we're going to talk about this game. Good bounce back win for the Bulls as they are moving up in the playoff standings. Instead of moving out, the standings are moving for the Bulls. They are going in a direction that I did not think was possible, honestly, when they traded Zach LaVine. They've gotten better without him. We're going to talk about Tre Jones. He's a lot of fun. Him and Julian Phillips both having a lot of good moments in this game, and they're closing, like I said, that gap for the Miami Heat. Now a virtual tie for the 9 seed in the Eastern Conference. We're going to hit on all of that. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Hope you've had a great weekend. No matter what you're doing, whether you're fishing or going out with the boys and celebrating St. Patrick's Day, hope you had a good one this weekend. So let's talk about this game. 111-97. Look, it's a 1-point game at the half. The Bulls outscore the Jazz 31-22 in the first. It flips in the second, 31-23. And we see a lot of very different things in this game. Modest Buzelis. Let's start there with Modest today on this postcast. He goes 7 of 13, 3 for 7 from the field, 17 points. So he has really a really nice bounce back game that he's kind of needed. It's still not the best night for him of what it can be, but it's been an improvement over what this recent stretch was. So that was really important for me in this game. As the Bulls get back in the win column against the Utah Jazz and after losing to the Houston Rockets this weekend, one of the things that we talked about on the show on Saturday was just kind of the drop-off from Modest that we've seen. And seeing that confidence kind of come back, it felt like, in this game where he just looked more comfortable with the ball in his hand was really important. Coby White goes 26 points. Still not the most efficient 9 of 19 from the field, 2 of 10 from the three-point line. So he's still kind of throwing up bricks, but he's scoring again. So that's 9 straight games now for Coby White where he has 20-plus points. And even, look, any game to me where Nikola Vucevic misses his first 9 shots feels like it's going to be challenging to win. And as he made his first one, as a 3 to make him 1 for 10 on the night, give him 5 points in the game. That to me was like, okay, like once they made that shot, I was like, okay, maybe the Bulls are going to find a way to actually win this basketball game. But he had a tough night, but he did get another double-double and is now his 196th as a member of the Chicago Bulls, closing in on Scottie Pippen in second place. Vooch is going to end up as the player with the second most double-doubles in the history of this franchise, which is crazy to think. Like, when you think about that deal and what the Bulls have not accomplished, it is hard to argue that like it's a total failure when you look at the stats and be like, hey, man, he's going to be number 2 in double-doubles in franchise history, only behind Artis Gilmore, most likely, by the time his Bulls career ends. It's hard to argue that this trade's like a total bust. You didn't do anything with it, but I mean, this is probably it feels like still, like, ironically, like it feels like they're just so much better without Zach LaVine and where this team is at now. But Vooch gets that double-double, figures it out offensively a little bit towards the end, ends up with 10 points on the night, but 3 for 15 from the field. It's just a tough night. So to have guys go 3 for 15 from the field, Coby White 2 for 10 from the three-point line, Patrick Williams 2 for 10 from the field. Zach Collins put up a big old 0 egg, 0 for 6 from the field himself. So you got a lot of guys that really struggled to score in this game to help you get the victory over the Jazz. But one guy that to me absolutely just stood out, and I just am enjoying watching him play basketball. And it honestly, it's giving me more questions about just what I don't know about the NBA, to be honest, is Tre Jones. He's fun. Zach says here in the chat right away, this is a Tre Jones postcast. He's fun, man. He gets to the rim. It was such ease. And there's such kind of like Io in a lot of ways, but I think more because I guess I need to see them stand side by side or even just look at their stats head to head. But I'm assuming he's smaller than Io. He looks it on the court. But he can just do like whatever he needs to do at any time to get to the bucket. And And really, even if there's a massive size advantage in the paint for the other team, it just seems to not bother him. And it feels like when he goes to the paint, his shots should be getting blocked, but he continues to just attack really well and plays at just a really, really strong pace. He ends up with 18 points on the night, 8 for 10 from the field, only took 2 threes, made both of them, but he had 12 assists in this game. Like, without Giddey, without Lonzo, you need someone to step in and really play the point guard role effectively for this team, and he is doing that so far. I would say I felt like on Saturday versus the Rockets, like, you were clearly missing Josh Giddey, but I think Tre Jones did a good job himself of just keeping this game in control as the point guard of the Chicago Bulls. So this is, what, for him, man, it's just kind of a joy to watch. What it makes me question is just like, why didn't teams want Tre Jones? Like, it's interesting. Like, you see guys like him, and I'm just like, man, like, don't you think like a team that's actually competitive, for trying to play for something, wouldn't value him as a role player on their roster for the rest of the season? Instead, he's on the Bulls, who are going to be a playing team, yes, but you couldn't flip him at the deadline. And so I don't know if that's a criticism of the front office, if it's a criticism of the rest of the league, if Tre Jones is kind of like one of those under the radar players. But watching him, I'm like, man, like, I feel like they could have got something for him at the deadline with the energy and the pace that he plays with, and just how effective he is getting to the basket. It just feels like on a really good basketball team, like, that's the kind of guy you would want to help lead your bench unit, and he's done that well for the Bulls, whether it's in the bench role or in the starting role that he's in currently, as we await the return of Josh Giddey and Lonzo Ball. So kind of like Zach Collins, where even though, yes, not a great night tonight for him versus the Jazz, 0 points, not good. But I do hope that when we see the return of Giddey, and if we see the return of Lonzo, I'm not so convinced that we will see that happen at this point in the season. I hope we continue to see more minutes, or just consistent minutes for Tre Jones the rest of the year. Just, to me, it's not a guy that deserves to end up on the bench for the Chicago Bulls, and he really can just be a guy that is a contributor. And yes, the Bulls are officially, I was waiting for the standings to update to make sure based on tiebreakers and everything, but as we are here now, the Miami Heat lost. The Chicago Bulls are no longer the 10 seed. They are currently, as we sit here today, the 9 seed in the Eastern Conference, and they would host a play-in game, I believe, is the way that's set up. The Miami Heat have lost 8 in a row. They're 1-9 in their last 10, and the Bulls are within striking distance, 2.5 games back of the Orlando Magic, only 3 games back of the Atlanta Hawks for the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference. As much as we all wanted them to tank, if you were going to tell me today, put a gun to my head and where the Bulls going to finish this season, I honestly, like, I don't think they're going to finish at the 10 or the 9 seed. Like, they're just playing good enough basketball. And that is frustrating for a team that should just be tanking it out, but it just feels like they're going to play good enough basketball in the regular season to honestly move up in the standings. And it won't mean much, obviously, but it wouldn't shock me at this point now if we get more than one playing game, if they're more than just more than a one and done, and maybe it's 2 and done, like maybe it's 2 playing games and the season's over. But it would not shock me if we see the Bulls, do a little magic here towards the end of the season, and not to be ironic, that was totally unintentional, chase down Orlando, at least for the 8th spot. And who knows with Atlanta, they're a hit or miss team as well. All right, let's talk more about what we saw from this game, closing in on that 9 spot, like what it means going forward. And just overall, this game versus Utah Jazz, still unconfirmed if they still have the Wi-Fi, as was talked about on the broadcast of MJ pushed off. But we will discuss more on this win when we get back here on the Locked On Bulls postcast on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. Today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment? It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So stop managing your money and start building wealth. When you use Monarch Money, you can find insights on what you're doing with if you're ordering too much food, if you're ordering out too often, you can get like alerts of like, hey, this is what you're doing right now. It's easy collaboration, so you can see managing money with a partner, whatever you're doing. You can set goals for paying debt off and things like that, all through Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at Monarch Money for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Today's show also brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. Filled out my bracket today, as all of us do. I went with the Houston Cougars winning the national championship over Rick Pitino's St. John's, the Johnnies. So I got the Cougs over the Johnnies in the tournament this year. You can visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. DoorDash, NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. It's simple. When any player scores 50 or more in a game during the 2024-2025 NBA regular season, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order, up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. So, March Madness, it's here. So you want to order wings, order pizza, whatever you want to do. The best 2 days of sports, really the best weekend of sports, it's on the horizon. So everybody be crossing your fingers that somebody's going to be dropping a 50 burger in the NBA on Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, even just all the action going on right now. You can sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save when any player scores 50 or more in a game. Dash Pass members get 50% off on any order the next day, up to $10 off. Just use promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. All right, couple other things here from today's game. Yes, as the chat says, Stacey King on one tonight. I feel like he's always on one. You never know what kind of gems. The one tonight was Walker Kessler, runs a 40 in 2 weeks. Look, speaking of Walker Kessler, one interesting note from this game, I thought. We saw against the Rockets, didn't go super well for the Chicago Bulls, that when the Rockets rolled out Alperen Sengun and Steven Adams, the Bulls for the first time this season responded with Zach Collins playing with Nikola Vucevic, with Jalen Smith playing with Zach Collins. So for the first time this year, we really saw that be put in action. The Rockets were much better at that point. Their plus-minus was much higher with those guys on the court with Sengun and Adams versus when it's not. And that's why the Rockets beat the Chicago Bulls over the weekend. But the Jazz are a larger basketball team with guys like Markkanen and Kessler and that are out there. And it's interesting that Jalen Smith, DNP, did not play this game. I don't know if it went that poorly to where Billy Donovan was just like, we're not going to try this anymore. Like, we're just going to keep doing what we do. We're not going to change our system based on matchups. Like, we're just going to ask, Patrick Williams, Modest Buzelis to be and play bigger than they kind of even are and just kind of carry the load in those moments. And that's really seems like what the task that was made for those guys in this game. But just interesting that, Jalen Smith, after that opportunity to finally see the two big men lineup, Billy Donovan does not go back to it. Because I did feel like coming into this game, and I had it in my notes before the game, of like, maybe we'll see this happen one more time in this game. Let's get to a couple of our important things for the show today. First, let's get to our player of the game.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
All right, player of the game today. We are going to go with Tre Jones. 8 for 10 from the field, 18 points. Think this one's easy. Yes, Kobe White scored more, but not efficient in the way he did it. Tre Jones, a couple moments in this game that absolutely stood out to me. It really defensively, offensively for him. He was just overall a really solid player for the Chicago Bulls tonight. So Tre Jones is the Locked On player of the game. Also, let's get to our turning point of tonight's game.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
All right, so this moment here in the game, it's not necessarily, the best thing that happened, but I do think that this is where the game felt like it was turning into the Bulls' favor. Nikola Vucevic, he hits a three, makes it 72-64. His first field goal of the game. He's 1 for 10 from the field at that point with 5 points. I do think that is the turning point of the game. To at that point go up, by 8 points. The Bulls really never looked back at that point. They ended the third quarter up 10, 86-78. Obviously got up by, 12, 13 points there in the fourth quarter as well. So I think that is, the one where I look at this game, I'm like, all right, like that's where this game was officially won by the Bulls on a night where, again, Nikola Vucevic absolutely terrible from the field. One of his worst, I would imagine, offensive performances of his career, 3 for 15 from the field. But again, does find that 10 points, 10 rebound, double-double in his bag to get his 196th as a member of the Chicago Bulls. But I think that's the turning point of tonight's game. And one final thing before we wrap up today's show, let's get to what you'll be talking about after this Bulls win over the Jazz.
This is what you'll be talking about.
They're the 9 seed. That's what we're going to be talking about. The Bulls are supposed to be tanking. There's no other conversation about this. Like they're currently the 9 seed. It's that's what people are going to be talking about. And in good and bad. The people who are, because there's going to be both sides of this. Like a lot of these kind of, what you're talking about since we started doing it, like I feel like a lot of this has kind of been the conversation around the Bulls, but there's going to be two sides to this story for the Bulls from Bulls fans after they are currently the 9 seed in the Eastern Conference. You're going to have one side that is hyped, that is, feeling good about this team moving up. They're excited about the way Trey Jones is playing, like I am, that Mas Buzelis had a good, game rebounding, a good rebound game for him offensively and on the boards itself. There's going to be that side. And then there's going to be the other side that people are just pissed, and rightfully so. Like they want this team to tank out, and they want this team to be nowhere near where they're at in the playoffs. They want to be closer to the top odds in the lottery, but that's kind of where we're at this season. Is I don't think we're going to see much. I don't think you're going to see a lot of Bulls fans try to be in the middle, and I try to be for people listening, so I can try to kind of, if you're listening on YouTube or on audio, where there's tons of people listening to the show, it's like I want to make sure that like there is a balance of this, because I get the frustration for the people who really only want this team to tank, and that just hasn't happened. But I think that's the most important part, the most important thing that we'll all be talking about in this game after this one, because the Bulls win 111-97, and they are the 9 seed. Also, a couple other quick things here before we wrap up the show. Dalen Terry thought he had another solid game offensively. He ends up with 12 points, but 5 for 7 from the field. Had the big dunk, 3 rebounds, 2 steals, 1 assist. So it feels like he's kind of carved his way out of Billy Donovan's doghouse a little bit. And this next guy, like while he only had 5 points in this game, there's something about Julian Phillips that I really like. I talked about this before. Like I don't know what his ceiling is as a member of the Bulls or as an NBA player itself, but he just does like the little things really well, and that's what I think this Bulls team really needed as they've turned it around. Like they need guys who do the little things really well, and Julian Phillips, Trey Jones, Zach Collins, like some of these new guys, but also some of the younger guys, I feel like it filled those roles of just doing the little things that make the differences in winning some of these basketball games and not losing to a team like the Jazz, who are a 15-win team. Like, I mean, I hate to dog on Levine and DeRozan too much, but this feels like if this was the same exact situation, but with last year's roster, this feels like a game where the Bulls, they just lose because they would underperform consistently against teams like the Utah Jazz. So if you're happy with the win today, I do think this checks the box in terms of not playing down to your competition in a major way. All right, that will do it for us here on the Locked On Bulls postcast. Thanks for watching on YouTube. Thanks for listening on audio. Shout out to you guys. You can find the channel Locked On Bulls, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. This West Coast trip will be here. 9 o'clock start. We'll go on the air on YouTube like 11:30-ish. Usually it's 2.5 hours after the game. So if you're up late watching the Chicago Bulls while they're on the West Coast, we'll be here for you. if you're not up late, the audio and YouTube will obviously be available for you the next morning as well. So thanks for checking us out. Thanks for listening. My name is Joe George. The Bulls are the 9 seed. They're moving up instead of moving out of the playoffs. That'll do it for us. Thanks for watching. Talk to you next time. Peace.